Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Vigils were held in Uvalde, Texas, Wednesday, a day after an 18-year-old gunman shot and killed 19 students and 2 teachers at the Robb Elementary School. It was the deadliest school shooting in the United States in over a decade. All the victims were in the same 4th grade class. The White House says President Biden will visit Uvalde in the coming days. Meanwhile, chilling details have emerged about the events leading up to the massacre. Officials say the gunman lawfully purchased 2 semi-automatic assault rifles and up to 375 rounds of ammunition just last week after his 18th birthday. On Tuesday morning, he texted a teenage girl he'd befriended online in Germany, writing, "I'm going to shoot my grandmother." Then he wrote, "I just shot my grandma in her head," followed immediately by the message, "I'ma go shoot up a elementary school." Police say the gunman shot his way past an armed school security officer, then barricaded himself inside the school for over an hour, wounding 2 police officers before he was shot dead by a Border Patrol agent. Some parents report they tried to storm the school as they waited for police to respond, but were pushed back. The gunman was reportedly in that school between 40 minutes and an hour. On Wednesday, Texas gubernatorial candidate and former Democratic Congressmember Beto ORourke interrupted a press conference held by Texas Governor Greg Abbott in Uvalde. Video of the incident shows Beto approaching the stage and telling Abbott, "This is totally predictable when you choose not to do anything." Beto ORourke was shouted down by top Texas Republicans and escorted from the room by police. We'll play excerpts of that confrontation after headlines. Governor Abbott has declined to say whether he still plans to attend the National Rifle Association's 2022 annual meeting, which is set to open in Houston on Friday. Texas Republican Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Republican Senator Ted Cruz still plan to attend, as does former President Donald Trump. He'll be the headliner on Friday night. World leaders continue to react in horror to the latest mass shooting in the United States. At the Vatican, Pope Francis said Wednesday he's heartbroken by the massacre in Texas.
It
is time to say enough to the indiscriminate trafficking of weapons. Let us all make a commitment. Let us all make a commitment so that tragedies like this cannot happen again.
After headlines, we'll get the latest on the Texas elementary school massacre and speak with a gun activist who helped rewrite Australia's gun laws after a mass shooting in 1996. In Ukraine, fierce fighting continues to rage around the besieged industrial city of Severodonetsk, where sustained Russian artillery attacks this week have killed at least 6 civilians. Russian forces are also advancing on the city of Lyman in the southeastern Donetsk region. On Wednesday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky blasted Henry Kissinger after the former U.S. Secretary of State said Ukraine should trade some of its territory for a peace agreement with Russia. Zelensky compared Kissinger's proposal to the appeasement of Nazi Germany in the 1930s.
Mr. Kissinger emerges from the deep past and says that a piece of Ukraine should be given to Russia, so that there is no alienation of Russia from Europe. It seems that Mr. Kissinger's calendar is not 2022, but 1938. And he thought he was talking to an audience not in Davos, but in Munich of that time.
Russia's parliament has voted to abolish an upper age limit for people wishing to join the military. Once President Vladimir Putin signs the measure into law, Russians over the age of 40 will be able to enlist in the armed forces. On Wednesday, Putin visited a military hospital in Moscow where he met with soldiers injured in Ukraine for the first time since he ordered his troops to invade more than 3 months ago. Also Wednesday, Putin signed a decree fast-tracking Russian citizenship for residents of Russian-occupied areas of Ukraine. Hungary's authoritarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has extended emergency powers, citing the war in neighboring Ukraine. The move grants Orban's far-right nationalist government sweeping powers to enact policies without the input of the legislature. Orban, who recently won a fourth term as prime minister, has been accused of turning Hungary into a, quote, ballot box dictatorship. In Afghanistan, at least 14 people were killed in a series of bomb attacks Wednesday. 5 people died and 22 others injured after a bomb exploded in a mosque during evening prayers in the capital, Kabul. Meanwhile, in northern Afghanistan, 9 people were killed and 15 others injured in a series of blasts targeting minivans carrying minority Shia Muslims in the city of Mazar-e-Sharif. Afghanistan's ISIS affiliate claimed responsibility for those attacks. The violence came as UNICEF warns some 1.1 million Afghan children are expected to suffer from severe, acute malnutrition this year. Thousands of people across the Middle East have been hospitalized with respiratory problems after a massive sandstorm settled over the region this week. Kuwait suspended airline flights. Iran canceled classes for school children. Saudi officials warned drivers over zero visibility conditions on roads. On Monday, Iraq's government canceled most public services as the country's 9th major sandstorm in less than 2 months arrived. The United Nations Environment Program says Iraq is one of the most vulnerable nations to climate change and desertification. In Pakistan, temperatures in the city of Jacobabad hit a record 51 degrees Celsius Wednesday. That's 124 degrees Fahrenheit. Farmers in the region say extreme heat this year is killing crops and drying up water supplies.
The mango crop yield has been reduced by 50% this year. This is because of the scarcity of water. Mango farmers have suffered losses, and so did the traders.
The Biden administration says they'll seek to ban the disposal of mining waste in Alaska's Bristol Bay, citing its authority under the Clean Water Act. The move by the Environmental Protection Agency could spell the end of the Pebble Mine project, a proposed open-pit gold and copper mine that would require constructing a massive power plant, natural gas pipeline, and huge toxic tailing ponds. In Davos, Switzerland, climate activists on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum are demanding world leaders act urgently on the climate and on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This is Kenyan environmentalist Elizabeth Wathuti.
I think one of the main things about the war in Ukraine is the fact that it has continued to exacerbate the impacts of climate change, and especially the rising food insecurity in the Horn of Africa. And what we're hearing is the fact that, this crisis, people talk about it, but we are not talking about the Ukraine crisis and the climate crisis at the same time. And it's as though people are not aware of the fact that this crisis also continues to impact the communities on the front line.
In Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, at least 23 people have been killed in one of the deadliest police operations in the nation's modern history. The police raid targeted Vila Cruzeiro, one of the Rio's favelas, historically low-income communities that trace their origin to the legacy of slavery and the system of racial oppression in Brazil that continues to this day. Officials say military police were dispatched early Tuesday to capture leaders of a suspected drug trafficking group when gunfire erupted. Witnesses say police arrived shooting to kill. One resident, a 41-year-old woman, died after she was struck by a stray bullet. Dara Greja Gomes, a professor and leader of the Federation of Rio de Janeiro's favelas, spoke just after the killings.
Regardless of whether a person was involved in a crime, if it's proven these were executions, well, no one should have been executed. There is no death penalty in Brazil, right? So I think we need to carry out a very serious and very rigorous investigation to understand how these murders took place.
Here in the United States, President Biden marked the 2nd anniversary of George Floyd's murder by signing an executive order aimed at reforming policing. Joining Biden at Wednesday's signing ceremony was George Floyd's family, as well as that of Breonna Taylor, who was killed in 2020 when police executed a no-knock warrant at her apartment.
This is a call to action based on a basic truth. Public trust, as any cop will tell you, is the foundation of public safety. If they're not trusted, the population doesn't contribute, doesn't cooperate.
Biden's order directs federal agencies to revise use of force policies, banning tactics like chokeholds and restricting practices like no-knock warrants while establishing a national database of police misconduct. Biden's executive order came as a reform bill. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act remains stalled in the Senate amidst Republican opposition. And the Goldman Environmental Foundation held its annual awards ceremony Wednesday, honoring the world's foremost grassroots environmental activists. This year's winners include Nigeria's Chima Williams, an environmental lawyer who worked with communities to hold Royal Dutch Shell accountable for the environmental impact of its oil spills in Nigeria. Other winners include Ecuador's Alexandra Narvaez and Alex Lusitante, who together spearhead an indigenous movement to protect Kofan ancestral territory from gold mining. Also winning a Goldman Award this year was Nayeli Cobo of Los Angeles, California, who in March 2020, at the age of 19, led a community coalition to permanently shut down an oil drilling site in her community. Cobo survived childhood asthma and a bout of cancer she blamed on toxins from the oil wells.
What formally began in January 2011 as a grassroots campaign in South Los Angeles, fighting the oil well next door, operating on land owned by the Archdiocese, ends in January 2022, with the city of Los Angeles voting unanimously to phase out oil and gas wells. We won't stop here. We need to ensure our elected officials act on this. I fight because I believe everyone has a right to breathe clean air despite age, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, or zip code. I fight so no future generations has a childhood like mine.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman, joined by Democracy Now! Co-host Nermeen Sheikh. Hi, Nermeen.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.